What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Fantasy Six Pack YouTube channel. I'm your host today, Dylan Clemons. Here with me is Joe Bond, founder of Fantasy Six Pack, and today we are revealing his top 10 wide receiver rankings. Joe, how you feeling today?
Good, man. Just ready to jump in here and talk some wide receivers.
Absolutely. I'm excited as well. Before we jump into things, though, I just want to remind everybody, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit that little bell for notifications so you know when we go live or another video is uploaded. Also, I want you to head on over to fantasy6pack.net/plans and check out what we have to offer over there. As a monthly all access member, you get access to our award-winning rankings, to our draft cheat sheets, our F6P Discord, where our entire staff is there waiting just to answer your guys' questions. Plus, we have our DFS projections and stacking tool over there as well, just for a small fee of $9.99 a month. Plus, if you go sign up right now, you get a free 2-week trial. And once again, that's fantasy6pack.net/plans. Joe, what do you say? Let's jump right into your top 10 wide receivers for PPR. And your wide receiver 10, the old man on the list, Joe. Davante Adams with the Las Vegas Raiders. This guy got peppered with targets last year. He had some big weeks, more so a big week that kind of propelled his fantasy season, but he was still solid. It's good. It's good. I do like to see that he's still in your top 10 in wide receivers, Joe, and I do agree with you. So what are your thoughts here on Adams heading into this season?
It's not going to be pretty, man. The quarterback situation there is not great. He cannot. It's hard to argue with 175 targets from last year. And I mean, like, that's just the norm for him at this point. Like, it's so nuts. He just gets absolutely just 149, 169, 180, 175. Like, my goodness. So yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see what happens there, from the quarterback side of things. I'm not expecting the most consistent play from him, but overall, Davante Adams is going to be just fine. Yeah, I mean, I totally get passing on him though because of the quarterback situation. But look, a good receiver usually can figure things out.
And he did for the most part. I mean, he was kind of, I alluded to it. He had a 42-point fantasy game in week 3. And then in week 17, he had a 37-point performance as well. But then in between that, those point totals are obviously win you weeks. But then there's other weeks, Joe, where he's giving you 4.9, 2.1, 7.4, 1.4, and you're drafting him in the end of the first round, early second round. That's troublesome right there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about with the consistency. So if you are one of those players who really strives to build a consistent, well-performing team every week, Davante Adams might not be the guy you're targeting here, but the upside with him and the ceiling with him is unquestioned in my opinion.
Yep, absolutely. Looking at the next guy here, your wide receiver 9, and that's Chris Olave, somebody who I personally was excited about last year. A deep threat, deep ball target, and Derek Carr throws the deep ball very well. He didn't end up having a great season, was still solid. What are your feelings towards Chris Olave as your wide receiver 9 heading into things here?
Yeah, he is a bit of a deep threat, but don't forget this guy also, sees quite a bit of targets as well. 138 last year, and that was with Derek Carr, banged up for a lot of last season. He played through it, but this was not the Derek Carr that we all are used to seeing. Not that Derek Carr is like an amazing quarterback, but he is not as bad as he was last year. He's being drafted as one of the worst, like one of the last quarterbacks off the board, which is just shocking to me. Like, in my opinion, he should probably be considered like a low end QB2. Like, I think he's that good. Olave, yeah. The Saints offense as a whole isn't fantastic. Alvin Kamara is getting older. Olave's also inconsistent, but that is somewhat because of the quarterback play last year. I think we're going to see an improvement there. And I just, you just love seeing the targets that he gets week in and week out for the most part, right? I mean, we've now seen his target share go from 119 to 138 in year 1 to year 2. I think we could actually see that go up again as they're starting to just get more comfortable. Him and Derek Carr, and yeah, I think there was definitely a few games where it was like, what happened? Like it didn't make any sense how bad he was. Week 4, man, he saw 6 targets, had 1 catch for 4 yards. It was like, wait, what?
Just a killer. Yeah,
that was weird. But it was weird. Like the yardage wasn't really there last year. Covering around like 50, 60 yards a bunch of times. Then he'd like boom for over 100. It was very inconsistent, and the touchdowns weren't there. 5. I think that's going to improve as well. So, yeah, Olave's my number 9.
Yeah, I could see it uptick in touchdowns this year off of 5 as well with improved quarterback play from Derek Carr. You have to believe he's going to get better. Looking at your wide receiver 8, another guy who everybody loved last year was hoping for a breakout, and that was Garrett Wilson. Was still solid with just abysmal quarterback play. Still finished as a wide receiver 2. I don't even know if abysmal is the word to say, Joe, with what that season was from the Jets after Aaron Rodgers went down. But he gets his QB1 back in Aaron Rodgers. Is sky's the limit is it sky's the limit for Garrett Wilson once again this year?
Yeah. I mean, I think we should all be buying in like we did last year with Aaron Rodgers being the quarterback. And look, I mean, the fact of it is, he finished wide receiver 23, averaging 13 points a game with, whoever quarterback. I mean, it was bad. Like, we all know. I mean, we know who it is. It doesn't even matter. That's the point, right? But I mean, like, look, he still scored, 14 and 16 and 15 points, 17 points, 17, 18. He just didn't have those like massive, like blow up games, right? He was his ceiling was capped. But it was never like horrendous. Like even his very worst week was 8 points in PPR.
You like that for sure.
That's better than a lot of guys above him, right? And
yeah.
We just talked about a couple of them that were like, what happened to you? Chris Olave, right? So you like the fact that he was able to do that off of, the just horrendous quarterback play. And a lot of that comes from he was still 4th in targets last year in the NFL, the 168. I don't think that's changing with Aaron Rodgers there. If anything, I don't know if it goes up, right? That's a hard number to beat, right? 168 is pretty damn good. But I think what we're going to see is that he only caught 95 of those. We're going to see his completions go up, the yards go up, the touchdowns go up. He only had 3 last year. All the numbers that go with the targets are going to increase with Aaron Rodgers there.
Agreed. If he goes from 3 touchdowns to 8, man, you're looking at a completely new guy. And it's definitely in the realm of possibilities. And he's the clear-cut alpha number 1 guy in this offense.
Yeah. You give him an extra 20 catches, an extra like 200-300 yards. You're talking wide receiver 5-4 range, probably. Yeah,
absolutely.
Garrett Wilson's pretty good numbers.
Yeah. If I'm drafted towards the back half of the first round, if Garrett Wilson's staring right at me as my wide receiver 1 and the guys ahead of him have gone already, I'm completely fine with him as my wide receiver 1.
There's just so many good names on this list. It's so hard to move some of these guys up. But
absolutely.
A case could be made for, and I'm going to be honest with you, the 6, 7, and 8 here, the case could be made for any one of them to be interchangeable. Minuscule the margin of difference here between these guys.
Yep. And this next guy here, your wide receiver 7, AJ Brown, man. And the Eagles, by all accounts, their offense had a down season, Joe, and he still finished as wide receiver 4, man, in total points at the position. What are your thoughts on AJ Brown here as your wide receiver 7?
Yeah, look, 158 targets. You love to see it. The yards, 1,400 yards, the 7 touchdowns, and that was with a really slow start to this season. Like the first 2 games were like, what's going on with this guy? Like he saw 10 targets the first game, caught 7 for only 79 yards. Second game, it got even worse. 6 targets, 4 catches for 29 yards. Then he started barking, right? And then it was like, guys, what are we doing? Give me this damn ball. And well, they did just that. He reeled off 6 straight weeks of over 100 yards. Actually, 6 straight weeks of over 120. I'm just going to say 130. 1 week was 127. So we're just going to round up 130 yards plus every single one of those weeks. What's funny is he only scored in 2 of those weeks. No, sorry. It's 3. I can't read right now. But I mean, like the numbers were there. He reeled up, and then you're right. Then things just kind of fell apart for the entire offense. He was still seeing the targets, but the yards weren't there, and the touchdowns most definitely were not there. He only scored 1 more time after week 9. That's crazy to see. I don't think that's going to continue. But you do got to bump AJ Brown down a little bit from where he finished last year because they bring in Saquon Barkley. We talked about that in the running back show. That is going to impact these pass catchers. He is a threat out of the backfield there. So AJ Brown may not see the 4th, or whatever it is, the 7th most targets in the NFL this year, right? He may see a few less, but he's still just a massive threat. And so I would have no issues having him as my wide receiver 1.
Absolutely. Yep. Like you said, massive threat, deep ball guy, catch ball in the red zone as well. You have to believe. You'd like to believe that touchdown number will go up. Yep, absolutely.
You can do it all. Absolutely.
Yep. Your next guy, man, Joe. Wide receiver 6. I don't know if the hype can grow any more than it already has after the rookie season he had, setting all sorts of records, and that's Puka Nacua of the Los Angeles Rams. Man, oh man, Joe. I'll just let you have the floor, man. What are your thoughts on Puka?
Puka Nacua is special, man. He started off, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't a believer at first. I was like, oh, he's doing this without Cup. As soon as Cup comes back, he won't be anything.
I was very skeptical myself. Yep.
Man, was I wrong? I mean, I saw people dropping 80% of their fab budget, 100% of their fab budget on him. And I'm going, y'all are nuts. Oh, okay. I mean, look, I thought I was right at first, right? He came back and it was very inconsistent, up and down at first. It didn't look like he was getting he wasn't getting as many targets, and then he also wasn't catching as many balls. Like the percentage wasn't even there, man. Like everything kind of fell off for 2-3 weeks, right? Then the bye week happens, he comes back, and it's like, oh, okay, no, never mind, he's still good. It's like they figured out how to use both him and Cup in that offense at the same time after the bye week, and it was glorious, dude. Like it was so fun to watch. Both these guys are incredible. It's weird to see somebody else on a Cooper Cup wide receiver core be ahead of him in the rankings. But
by a large
happening.
margin too, Joe. Yeah.
I mean, Cooper Kupp has just dealt with so many injuries. He's absolutely slowed down. But he's still really good too. I just think with Puka there and Calvin Williams and there's only so many balls to go around, right? And Matt Stafford has his games where you're like, dude, come on. So yeah. I love it to Puka Nacua. It's hard to bet against the guy who just broke some rookie receiving records.
I agree. I'm in on Puka Nacua as well, but I also feel like this is kind of where the teardrop is. I feel like these next 5 guys here, Joe, are the elite of the elite. You might disagree with me, but
no, I totally agree with you.
Awesome. Wide receiver 5, you got Sun God himself, Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. I think you can make a case for him as the wide receiver 1 overall. I want to hear your thoughts on Amon-Ra heading into this year.
I'm not going to go wide receiver 1. I think the guys ahead of him are he's kind of in like a tier by himself from the next 4, in my opinion. But he's just so good. The yardage, the targets are all there. Now we are going to see, hopefully, my dynasty team is praying for it. Jameson Williams finally become a thing. Although they may not have Hawk for a bit of this season. We don't know yet. So that's going to be, or not Hawk. Sorry.
Nope, Hawks in Minnesota.
That's the Vikings. Just kidding. But well, okay. So the flip side of that, then let me back up. Pretend you didn't hear that. Laporta, right? So he's a major threat, right? So we are seeing more receiving competition for him, but like it didn't even matter last year, right? Like he's still going to see a ton of targets. This offense, especially when they're indoors, which are going to be a lot this year,
absolutely,
really can just hum. And Gibbs is only going to get better. Montgomery's still there. There's a lot going around, so there is a bit of risk, like buying in on Amon-Ra any higher than this, because there's just a lot of competition on that team for touches. The offense is good though, so you're going to be plenty happy with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Let's be real.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. There was only one game last year where he scored fewer than 12.9 PPR points, which is just giving him an awesome, massive floor, which you absolutely love in your early rounds. Looking at your wide receiver 4, I think you can make a case that this guy might be the most talented wide receiver out of the group, but he also still at the moment has a little bit of target competition in his wide receiver room, and that's Ja'Marr Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe, what are your thoughts with Ja'Marr Chase heading into this season with T. Higgins still there at the moment? Tyler Boyd did move on. What are you thinking?
Higgins being there, I actually think helps Chase.
That's fair.
I think if Higgins moves on, I guess you can, argue to say that, there'll be more targets, but this guy already sees a boatload of targets anyway. So, whatever, right? Give him an extra 20. He's got 145 last year. Yes, talented, one of the best receivers in the league. You obviously, you throw in the Justin Jeffersons, you throw in him. Those two were dynasty 1 and 2 last year, hands down, right? Like they were 1 and 2. They were 1 and 2 going in drafts last year, for receivers. There's a reason for it. These guys are so good. The reason why I dropped Chase a little bit farther is the consistency. I think he is less consistent than the next 3 that we're going to see.
I agree.
It almost feels like he takes games off. It's almost like I don't understand, and then when you look at like the end of the season stats, there's always like 1, if not 2 games where that like really pad his overall numbers. We saw it last year. He had that 52-point game, right, in PPR in week 5.
Yeah.
He had another 30 in week 13. You take 10, 12, 15 points off of each one of those games. He's dropping all the way down to like receiver. We're talking like receiver 20. He's in the Chris Olave range.
Sure.
And I get it. You can't do that. He had those games, but knowing that he does that, and then he comes back and gives you 9s and 8s and 8s, and like those games in the single digits constantly. It's 5, 6 of them last season.
Yeah, those will kill.
He gives you a few too many of those for me to bump him up above the next 3.
Yeah, I totally get that. You like to hopefully the efficiency gets a little bit better with hopefully a full 17 games.
Well, and
from
hopefully Joe Burrow being there. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's what, yeah. Yeah, I mean that is a huge factor into it too. And so, we hope Joe Burrow is there, but like it's weird, like almost nothing changed. Like his numbers were still elite, even without Joe Burrow. So we just hope he can just keep it turned on every game.
I agree with you there. This next guy, Joe, is your wide receiver 3. Is Justin Jefferson was the clear-cut wide receiver, wide receiver 1 off the board last year. Going through a little bit of changes with this offense. Kirk Cousins moving on to Atlanta. You might be looking at a Sam Darnold start. You might be looking at a JJ McCarthy start. But last year we saw it didn't really matter who the freaking quarterback was. Justin Jefferson was going to do Justin Jefferson things. It'd be awesome.
Yes.
That's kind of your thought process here as well, ranking him still as a top 3 wide receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we just got done talking about Chase and how inconsistent he is. We're talking like almost the complete opposite of Justin Jefferson. And yeah, you could have thought it was because Kirk Cousins was there. Well, I mean, we're saying Joe Burrow is probably better than Kirk Cousins, right? So even with Joe Burrow as quarterback, Justin Jefferson has been more consistent in his career. But Jefferson wasn't dealing with Kirk last year. It was a myriad of receivers plus or quarterbacks. Plus, he was dealing with injury himself. Points per game average, he finished 5th. I mean, just super good. Started out on fire. And, then of course he got hurt in week 5. So that hurts his points per average. Came back in week 14. Wasn't great the first game, but then finished off super strong. So I'm totally fine with Justin Jefferson. Yeah, I worry about the quarterback situation a little bit, which is why he drops down to 3 instead of being like 2 or even 1 again, which is probably where he would be in like a best receiver, NFL receiver conversation. But in fantasy, you do have to look at other factors, and quarterback is one of those. And I mean, as much as I think JJ McCarthy is polished as a quarterback, he's still going to be a rookie. And I think they're going to switch to him fairly quickly in the season.
Yeah, I would tend to agree that we're going to see JJ sooner rather than later for sure as well. Looking at your last 2 guys here, Joe, and this guy, Tyreek Hill, one of the most fun players to roster on your fantasy team. Just when he has his big blow-up weeks, it's crazy. Like we saw 44.5 point performance one week, and then he's 30 points sprinkled in, 32, 28. It's crazy. But unfortunately, as the season went on and towards the tail end, when it got colder outside and they were getting out on the road, Joe, the offense started to slow down. And Tyreek was still okay, the last in week 16 and 17, 18 points, 13 fantasy points. But that's not the guy that you want in the fantasy playoffs. But I can't see how you can't rank him within the top 2 just with his upside weekly. What are your thoughts here, Tyreek?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're 100% right here. You could argue he could be number 1. But yeah, with the offense sort of sputtering, and I mean, let's be real, they played those weeks. They also played 3 really good defenses. I mean, Dallas, Baltimore, and then and he sat out the Jets game. He was hurt, so totally not only was he dealing with injury, he was playing 2 of the better defenses in the entire NFL. So, and he still did okay, right? I mean, he still got 18 and 13 fantasy points in week 16 and 17. It wasn't what got you to the finals, with Tyreek Hill, right? If you got there with him, you would love to have gotten one of those 30, 28 point games from him. But I mean, that unfortunately what happens sometimes. But yeah, the dude is electric. The offense is just so fun to watch. We could probably argue and that we'll never see another 70 point performance in our lifetime. Right. But this team did it. It was fun to be like, hey, saw one of those. That was cool.
It really was.
Yeah, I mean, the guy deep ball threat, can catch the ball over the middle, and these like slant routes, and just take it to the house every time. Every time he has the ball, he's a threat to take it to the house. Like, he's that good. So Tyreek Hill is my number 2, and then number 1.
No surprise here, man. He finished as the number one wide receiver last year, and that's CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver, Dallas Cowboys, paired with Dak Prescott.
I will say Tyreek Hill finished with more points per game. He just didn't play week 15. So it probably would have been Tyreek Hill as wide receiver 1. But CeeDee Lamb, look, I joked with Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb and him, they're going to have 250 targets. Like, yes, of course not. But he had 181 last year. I mean, who the hell is there to take the ball away from him?
It's the same thing.
It's the same team. They just got rid of Tony Pollard and brought in Zeke. That's only going to help CeeDee Lamb see more targets, right? Because right now they do not have a running game that I think they can rely on. Period. It's him. It's Ferguson. It's
Brandon
Cooks. Yippee. Right? Like, CeeDee Lamb is just going to eat, man. He's gonna, and he finally look, he had good seasons. He finally had that, like, oh, all right. CeeDee Lamb's now legit and one of the super elite. Like, we knew it was possible. It just hadn't happened yet. He took that next step. I mean, he took an extra not even 30 targets and added almost 400 yards to his total.
Wow. Yep.
And I mean, I have no doubt that he can equal what he did last year. So CeeDee Lamb is my number 1, and enjoy it if you can get him. Him and CMC, by the way, are back and forth as my number 1 overall pick in PPR.
I don't blame you at all, man. Yeah, that's
2 are tough,
really
man. They're
tough
both
to
really
pick
good
between the 2. Yeah, just to piggyback a little bit more, after week 5, CeeDee didn't score fewer than 16.5 fantasy points in any game.
He never scored single digit fantasy points. Never.
Just great stuff, man. It really is.
So good.
Love it. Love it. Joe, this was a lot of fun going through your top 10 wide receivers. If you haven't already, go check out the top 10 quarterbacks and top 10 running back videos that we've already released. But yeah, I remind you guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Head on over to fantasy6pack.net/plans. Check out that all access member plan and make sure to hit up that 2-week free trial. Joe, anything else to add, or are we good?
Nope. Thanks for tuning in, and talk to you later.
See you guys.